The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
You get the feeling that Trimpin is almost like a tour guide. What has he found next, you know?
His studio is like...
What you're hearing there is some rather strange and extraordinary sounds from the documentary screening at the New Zealand International Film Festival called Trimpin, The Sound of Invention. It's been put together by Peter Esmonde, and he joins me in the Kiwi studio this morning. Morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, Glenn.
Lovely to see you, and welcome to New Zealand.
Thank you so much.
This is about a sound artist called Trimpin. He's almost a composer. He's an artist. I mean, he's a sculptor. Almost. Yeah. Gosh, he's kind of all things in one. When did you first come across this character?
Well, I kept on coming across his name, about almost 5 years ago now. I had gone out and intended to do a documentary about the most creative person I could find. And, I was talking to a lot of my friends who are artists, sound designers, music people, and the name Trimpin kept popping up in these weird circumstances. I thought, Trimpin, do you like Trimpin? I don't know. I've never trimped. What is this all about?
What is it? Yeah.
Exactly. And so the more I looked into it, the more I realized this guy was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was off and running from there.
So those are the sort of circles you run in? Those artistic?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Where does Trimpin base himself? Is he in New York or?
No. I figured in New York there'd already be a film about him long ago. He's in Seattle. He's up in Seattle, Washington, Northwest. The land of grunge and all that.
And he's German.
German emigre. He came over in '79, and there are these great stories about him not learning English and being accosted by police, et cetera, et cetera.
And he says he came over to America because there's so much junk lying around.
Exactly. There's plenty of cheap scrap. And Seattle was particularly great because of Boeing.
Yeah.
There was this wonderful scrapyard of Boeing. You could get all the airplane cable you ever imagined.
And he likes playing with junk, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. Junk, all kinds of things. Anything that resonates, anything that makes a sound.
Yeah. Why does he do it? I mean, what draws him to making? I mean, he could easily just pick up a guitar or a violin or play on a piano. Why play with junk?
No, the notion is to take sounds that no one's ever heard before, to create these things, and ideally to create them acoustically. Trimpin's very adept at electrical engineering, but he'd much rather hear these sounds, coming from bells, coming from cans, coming from cables, coming from saw blades. He's used all these things to create music, and some really beautiful music.
And you've spent a bit of time with him in his what would you call it? A workshop, I suppose.
TARDIS? No, it's actually it's a studio. It's kind of a combination of Frankenstein's lab and Santa's workshop.
He's like a mad scientist in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're not the first one who's called him that.
Yeah, and in the documentary, as we just heard, you said he's kind of like a tourist. I mean, a tourist operator, a tour guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of need him to be the tour guide, don't you?
No, absolutely, because the thing is, you would never imagine, I had this experience more than once when I was just walking down the street with Trimpin, and Trimpin would stop at a dumpster, and he would start looking into the dumpster and pull things out of a dumpster, or he would knock the dumpster on the side and get this huge resonant kind of boom from it. So you're walking down the street, and your mind is totally open to all these sources of music, all these sources for sound that you never imagined before.
Did you find out, did you get to the root of why he... is the way he is, and why he sees beauty in everyday kind of sounds that we take for granted?
Well, there is a history to it, and just as in New Zealand there's a history of invention and of musical invention, certainly. And that's one of the reasons I'm just really glad to be here with the film, because you have people like Glenn Lai here who did amazing work with sound, and Trimpin is very much part of that of that history. At the same time, he's very much his own self. I went back to Germany with him and spoke with his relatives. Where did this come from? Where did this little kid get these ideas? And, some of them are just as clueless as you or I.
Yeah.
It's like, God knows. His sister says he's got a brain like Mozart or Einstein, and I don't understand it.
Does he only exist in the sort of upper echelon of art, appreciators, or does he cross all kind of cultural and socio-economic sort of boundaries as well?
Well, the great thing about the music is that, and some of Trimpin's biggest fans are children, because he's playing with things like chimes, things that are percussive, and a lot of the sculpture is interactive. So you go into a space, and depending on where you walk, or depending on seismic data, or depending on how you twist a wheel, you'll get some wonderful sounds.
Yeah.
So it's on some level you can look at it very highbrow and say, oh yeah, he came out of John Cage, et cetera, et cetera. But on a very basic level, it's a lot of fun.
But he has that kind of childlike curiosity and imagination.
Very much so.
In things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was one of the most extraordinary pieces of his artwork or sound invention that you've ever seen?
Well, the one that a lot of people in the States know, particularly in the Northwest, is this tower of 700 self-tuning electric guitars that he created. That's at the Experience Music Project in Seattle. And these are programmed to play by themselves.
Yeah.
And they play this kind of smorgasbord of music. It's supposed to be a history of American string music, so everything from bluegrass to heavy metal. And it's the sculpture, and it's playing continuously. You go to the museum, and there it is, plucking away.
So it's all kind of wired up to a computer, a brain that does this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Trimpin does all the programming, all the design himself, all the stuff.
Wow. Did he also create a self-tuning piano?
Oh, yeah. There's the self-tuning piano. There's a clip of that in the film. And there's a piano, an instant prepared piano, that takes different objects and automatically places them on top of piano keys. So in the course of a 40-minute piece, you hear the piano do things. Well, if I just heard this recording, I never would have imagined it would be a piano. It sounds like strings. It sounds like really a full string orchestra.
It sounds like he's never out of ideas either. There's always something else to go on to.
No, he's very much the Energizer Bunny of artists. He's always got 5 projects going on at once.
Yeah.
And every time I stopped into the studio, it was pure show and tell. There was something else going on.
Yeah. He's obviously very successful in that he's got wide recognition for what he does. Is he able to live comfortably in what he does? Because you hear about some artists, they might be successful and everyone talks about them, but they're living in a shack somewhere and they can't afford to eat week by week.
Yeah. Trimpin has definitely been through that period of living, in a shack, and poverty is not all it's cracked up to be. No, he spent some time actually working as a commercial fisherman in Alaska because he could work 3 months a year and have enough money to do art for the other 9.
Potentially you could see him in this documentary and also in Deadliest Catch.
Potentially.
On a crab fishing boat or something.
Well, actually, I think he's given that up now.
Yeah.
He did get a MacArthur Genius Grant, which gave him $250,000. But again, 5 years, that's gone.
Yeah.
So it's still a fairly hand-to-mouth existence. I mean, it's not as if he's starving, but it's certainly not as if he's at top of the pops.
Yeah. Are we likely to hear any of his stuff on the radio?
No. I really had to. Well, first of all, I had to convince him to be the subject for a documentary in the first place.
Right.
That took some doing.
Is he quite a private individual?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And also the thing is that he really doesn't like to have his music commercially recorded because he believes that loudspeaker technology is only about a century behind the times.
Right.
And he'd much rather have you hear the pieces. And I really had to negotiate with him simply to get the material onto the film.
Yeah. So, Peter, are you now friends with Trimpin?
Seems so. Yeah, much to my surprise.
Through the process of doing the documentary?
Yeah, well, you hang with, somebody for 180 hours of shooting and, you're either friends or enemies.
Yeah. Struggled to edit this one down as well? It
took about 8 months. There's 180 hours of footage plus archival footage. So, yeah, it was... And, again, there's no voiceover in it, really. You won't hear my voice. So we really, step you through. There were interviews, but no voiceover.
Did you have to do something special to capture sound live?
Oh. Yeah, absolutely. The big installations brought in professional multi-track engineers, people from Princess Studio, Paisley Park, places like that, simply to capture the sounds. And the great thing about the Academy Cinema, I was there yesterday, so they've got this beautiful setup, beautiful audio setup. So it's recorded in 5.1 surround, and you should be able to hear it like that.
Great. You'll be at the screening?
Indeed. I'll be at the screening with Phil Dadson, who's a New Zealand sound artist of no small repute, and so I'm really delighted to be there with Phil.
Yeah. And which screening are you going to be at?
I'll be at both screenings here in Oakland tonight, 6 p.m. Tomorrow, that is Friday at 1:15 p.m. And then subsequently in Wellington. It'll be showing in Wellington on Saturday. And from there it goes to Christchurch and I don't even know how to pronounce it, Dunedin?
Dunedin, yeah.
Dunedin.
Yep. Great, and all the various times are up at nzff.co.nz. That's where you'll can find it all, and also book tickets as well. Peter Esmonde, so nice to have you in and telling us about Trimpin, the sound of invention.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn.